I'm a little biased to bias tape because I think it is the best thing you can add to any project to make it so much better. I think it makes it easier. I use it instead of aligning sometimes. I use it to secure woven fabric. I'm gonna show you the two ways I use bias tape the most. So bias tape, the why it's called that is because it's cut on the bias, which allows it to go around curves. I'm using a contrast color because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. But usually, I mean, you can also use a contrast color if you want contrast on the edge of your fabric, because that's also that's fun. No one hates that. The supplies you need. The first one we're gonna go through is bias tape. And the one that I use the most is a double fold 1/2 inch bias tape. So you can see that it has these little things where it's open. Fabric of your choice. I prefer the sewing clips versus pins. Sometimes I use pins, just depends what I'm doing. For this, love these. A hand sewing needle and then scissors. You'll also need a sewing machine. I have my industrial, but home sewer is also stunning. You'll need a matching thread, tailor's block, a ham, and an iron. This one is the most basic and the quickest. I use this to cover up seams. You can use it as contrast piping or not contrast piping, but it's just super simple. I'm going to do this on a curve so you can see the bias tape really in action, but you want to start with just measuring out how much bias tape for the section that you're going to be sewing in. I just clip it off with one clip at the top because around the curve it can get a little funky. You're going to sew in the valley with the bias tape on the right side of the fabric. Honestly, I kind of say it in that way because I'm dyslexic and I'm like, right side of the fabric, right side of the fabric. Then you want to go iron right in here. And then I turn it over. We're just folding over that edge. I use my fingers a lot, but if you need to press it down to cool it, this is what the tailor's ham is for. I love ironing on the ham because if you're on a curve, you can really it irons to the curve versus a straight line. We're already to the last step. So all you need to do is just top stitch the bias tape down to seal it off. I like to sew it on the right side so I can just see the top stitch and how it's gonna look. And that's it for the first one. Let's move on to the second way. All right, so for this one, it's a little sneakier and I like to use this instead of doing a lining. So again, it's just super quick, super easy, super sneaky. The first step is very similar to, actually the first couple steps are very similar to the other one that we just did. So you want to measure out, sew on in the little valley, and then you go through and you press down that bias tape into the garment. This, because we're going to be folding it into itself, it needs to be able to have a nice curve. So you're going to have to go through and clip into that armhole or to the curve that you're doing. It doesn't have to be an armhole, but see how I just go through and I make the little triangle snips. This allows the fibers in the fabric to have a little bit more give. So yeah, again, when you go back to fold it all over, it lays so much nicer. And if you're doing a straight edge, you don't need to worry about snipping the fabric because it will just fold over obviously pretty easy. All right, not much to say on this. It's just more of a visual moment, but you want to fold over that bias tape onto that clipped fabric that you just did. And when you're done ironing that, then you're going to fold it over again into the garment. You'll want to make sure you do a solid press on this because you're going to be doing a hand stitch versus a sewing machine stitch. You could also use fabric clips if your fabric is being a little funky and not laying down when you press it. Okay, now it's time to hand stitch. I'm also just gonna show you how I tie a knot in my needle. I just do this little crossover of the tail onto the needle and I twist it a few times and then pull down on the thread. And it makes such a good knot almost every time, but it's my preferred way. So I go through the top and then what I do is I just grab a little tiny bit of the fabric. You really don't want to get a lot. And again, every fabric is going to be so different depending on what you do, but you just want to grab the tiniest little bit and then yeah, I do a blanket stitch, which when you go through when you go through the fabric and the bias tape, you have that loop and then you go back through the loop and then you kind of just are able to grab the fabric. Because if you don't, it can just get a little loosey goosey on the inside and a little messy, where this little tiny blanket stitch just, I think, makes it so much cleaner visually and just emotionally, physically. No, I'm just kidding. It just makes it, yeah, I don't know. It's the way I like it. I'm just gonna let you sit here and watch this because again, I feel like I
I really think it's just so important to have a visuals, and sometimes you need to watch, like, the full thing, not just the snippet of it, so you can just really grasp it. I mean, I guess you could probably just, like, repeat the thing on the video, but here it is full length. I guess I can maybe talk to you about something else like while you're watching this. That has to do with the blanket stitch, actually. So I got really into blanket stitches because I started upcycling blankets and turning them into coats and fully hand sewing them together using a blanket stitch. So yeah, anyways, here's a video on how I make them because I don't know, you might get inspired and you want to make one too. And then how you end it is you just go through and tie a couple knots a few times. And then I like to come out of it so you can like hide the tail of the thread.
Are you kidding? Is that not so chic for an arm? Obviously, I made it a little bit obvious so you can see kind of how I just grab a little bit, but like shaped around an arm, like that's so beautiful. Wasn't that so sick to just like learn this quick little skill just to elevate your projects? I hope you're inspired to use this in your work. Follow along because I'll be posting more on like little tips and tricks, full projects, pattern releases, all of the good things, maybe just some random stuff I just think is fun. So click to subscribe.